Next to the sensor, lenses are the most important part of any camera. Lenses take the light from the scene and focus it onto the sensor so that the image can be recorded. Whilst most consumer cameras use fixed lenses, most professional cameras use detachable lenses. Each camera will have its own lens mount, so you need to make sure that the lenses you're using fit on that camera's mount. The good part about detachable lenses means that you can choose the right lens for your scene. There's no point using a wide-angle lens when you're trying to get a close-up, unless you really want to invade your talent's personal space. In this video, I'll take you through all the different lens offerings that ScanPro Video have and how you can use them. Lenses can vary in price, and the cost of a Cine lens can sometimes put people off. But why is this? Normal photography lenses are often used in filming, and they are fantastic, but there are some differences between a photography lens and a true cinema lens that can reflect why there's a disparity in price. One reason for the difference is how we measure light that's transmitted through the lens. Cine lenses tend to use t-stops, whilst photography lenses use f-stops. In both cases, we can open and close the iris to either increase or reduce the amount of light that's let through. But what's the difference between a t-stop and an f-stop? F-stops are a mathematical equation for the focal length divided by the diameter of the aperture. So, if we have a 200mm lens at f4, that means that the aperture has a diameter of 50mm. T-stops, or transmission stops, are a measurement percentage of how much light is transmitted through the lens at any given stop. You might ask why this is important, and it's because f-stops aren't always the best way to measure light transmission through a lens. Modern lenses can have coatings on them which can affect light transmission, and if you were to take multiple lenses from different manufacturers and test them on the same camera, you might notice a variance in luminance in the recorded images. In contrast, t-stops across all high-end Cine lenses are very accurate, and this is because when you're recording to film, any change in the amount of light on the film can become really noticeable. It also makes balancing cameras really easy, especially when you're using a light meter. One of the other key differences between photography and Cine lenses is the way in which they're built. Now I can actually show you this difference here with this older photography lens that I have. It's a manual lens, which means it's got two rings. It's got the focus ring and the aperture ring here. Now with photography lenses, the aperture ring tends to click when you move between stops, and if I'm quiet you might actually be able to hear it. Now, Cine lenses are different in that they use a free ring for the aperture, so it doesn't click between stops, and this gives you more control over your exposure. However, if you're in a well-controlled environment, it doesn't really matter. Even zoom lenses differ when you compare photography and Cine lenses. So I can show this one as well, and this is a photography zoom lens, and when I zoom, you can actually see that it expands and contracts an external element. Whereas a Cine lens, or a Cine zoom, will expand and contract internal elements, and by keeping that fixed centre of gravity, it's much easier to balance the camera for stabilisation. None of this is to say that Cine lenses are a must-have for anyone filming, because many high-end photography lenses can actually produce incredible image quality at an unbeatable price. You might hear people talk about how fast the lens is, and they're not referring to the speed of the autofocus. What they're actually referring to is how much light is transmitted through the lens. Fast lenses tend to have a larger maximum aperture, with some going all the way to f or t 1.2. Whilst we'd all love to have a range of lenses that cover all the different focal lengths we might want to work with, this isn't always practical and can be very costly. This is where zoom lenses come in. As we've already mentioned, zoom lenses can expand or contract the elements within them to increase or decrease the focal length. This means that we can have a wider or a narrower field of view. One trade-off of a zoom lens is that they tend to have a smaller maximum aperture than what's known as a prime lens. Prime lenses tend to be much smaller, but they have a much bigger maximum aperture, with some going down to f0.95. This means that there will be a lot more light transmitted through the lens, and it makes getting a much shallower depth of field very easy. Because prime lenses tend to be smaller and lighter, it makes handheld or gimbal work a much less daunting task. Focal length and field of view are fantastic buzzwords, but what do they actually mean? When choosing a lens, you might see a value or a range of values given in millimeters. This is the focal length measurement, and this defines the difference between the nodal point, or the optical center of the lens, when it's focused at infinity, to the camera's sensor. This focal length measurement can also give us some insight into the field of view of the lens, with a smaller value meaning we have a wider field of view, and a larger value meaning we have a much narrower field of view. This is where we get names like wide angle and telephoto from. Lenses with a wide field of view are great for capturing landscapes or establishing shots, allowing you to capture all of the detail in the scene, whilst lenses with a narrow field of view are great for close-ups and getting you in the middle of the action without getting too much detail to distract from the subject. I hope this has given you some insight into the world of lenses and given you some food for thought for your next purchase. If you want to know more about lenses or how ScanPro Video can help you, please get in contact.